Montreal in Canada has a small but very effective metro system. On the one hand, with its brutalist architecture, it's very much symbolic of the time and environment in which it was built. But with European-style trains and a number of other oddities, it's also very different from anything else on the continent. Today I'm going to give you a general overview of the system, and then I'm going to focus specifically on the weirdest line, the yellow line, which only has 3 stations. Why does this exist? There are metro systems on every continent except Antarctica. Well, I think so. I don't actually know what those penguins are up to. You can imagine that with a channel name like Trains Are Awesome, I can appreciate each system for what it offers. But a handful of metros, I believe, rise above awesome and deserve to be called iconic. These are systems that are appreciated by train enthusiasts and the general public alike. Some of these that I've been on include Washington, D.C., iconic for its architecture, Tokyo for its complexity and efficiency, Berlin for its history, New York for its impact on culture, Mexico City for its design, Rome for basically being an archaeology site, and Baltimore because never have I had so many people comment saying, "Wait, I live here. I didn't know we had a subway." Okay, maybe not that last one. But there's one system that I think definitely should be added to that iconic category. It's Montreal. 4 lines, 69 kilometers, 100% underground. Giant, super heavy doors at stations. And the 4th highest ridership in North America, surpassed only by New York, Mexico City, and Toronto. Like many metro systems designed in the 1960s, the Montreal Metro features a lot of concrete. Boring, right? Wrong. Stations each feature unique, remarkable architecture and bold artwork. The trains are just as bold. Rejecting the traditional North American stainless steel look, they sport a unique and recognizable cerulean livery. And we haven't even talked about the whole second light metro system that they've built on top of it. We're not really going to talk about it either, because I've already made a REM video and you can watch it. Instead, let's go for a ride on the Metro Orange Line. From Bonaventure to Mont Royal. Today, we're traveling on a day pass, which we've loaded onto our Opus cards for $11.25. While we're on the subject of money, let's talk about the sponsor of today's video, Monarch. Monarch is an online personal finance platform. We all have different financial situations and priorities, right? Me, I'm riding that #adulting train right now. I've got house payments, bills, but I also like to travel, go to concerts, and to make all these different payments, I have a few different bank accounts and credit cards. Now, what I love about Monarch is that it takes all my financial information and shows it to me on one clean dashboard. Monarch is private and ad-free, so I can focus solely on my finances and not get distracted. It syncs with over 13,000 different institutions. It separates your fixed spending from your flexible spending. That flexible budgeting has been very helpful to me. If you need a little bit more help, Monarch also provides AI-powered insights into your finances. Another great feature of Monarch is that it's couples ready, so you and your partner can look at your finances together. And it's cross-platform, so you can choose to look at it on your laptop or on your mobile device. It's a beautiful, intuitive experience on both. I try to reduce stress wherever I can, and Monarch helps me reduce stress in my finances. And now you can too. Use the link in the description or the code TRAINS50 at checkout for 50% off your first year of Total Money Clarity. Thanks to Monarch for sponsoring today's video. When the train rolls in, we catch a glimpse of another signature feature of the Montreal Metro, rubber tires. This can be a strange sight if you're not used to it. It's not unique. Several cities around the world have rubber tire metros. Paris and Mexico City come to mind, although both of those cities do also have traditional steel wheel lines. Montreal exclusively uses rubber tire trains, but even in that, it's not unique. Several cities in France and Sapporo in Japan are also like that. Montreal was the first city in the world, though, to have an all-rubber tired metro system. In Montreal, the train's wheels run on concrete. However, in between the concrete, there is also a pair of steel rails which guide a pair of steel wheels, just like on a normal train, so the operator doesn't need to use a steering wheel.
Station Place d'Armes.
Why would you give your train car wheels? Well, rubber tires do have several advantages. They allow the train to accelerate and brake faster and to climb steeper gradients. However, in snow or ice, they get stuck. Now you're thinking, wait, Montreal has lots of snow and ice. Well, the reason that rubber tires work here is that the entire metro system is underground, so the trains never interact with the elements. The friction, though, does cause a lot of heat, especially when the trains brake. Fun fact, the trains have brake shoes that are made of locally sourced yellow birch, and the wood is then covered in peanut oil to prevent it from burning. The heat from the trains, though, is the reason why they can't have air conditioning. Since there are no outdoor sections, the heat created by the air conditioners would be trapped in the tunnels and overheat them to the point where you couldn't use them anymore. Ideas for underground transit in the city have existed since the 1910s, but in 1961 the City Council officially set aside money to begin construction on the metro as we know it today. The first segment opened in 1966. A man named Jean Drapeau was mayor. Remember that name for later. Interestingly, in the beginning, digging tunnels turned out to be cheaper than they expected, but by the 1970s, costs had ballooned, and so the provincial government banned any further construction. This moratorium was resolved in 1981 when a compromise was made between Montreal and Quebec on future expansion. The most recent extension was in 2007, and one is currently under construction as well. Although commonly referred to by their colors, the lines are officially numbered 1, 2, 4, and 5. What about 3?
We do not speak of tres.
3 was reserved for the Red Line, a planned line that would use the existing Mont Royal railway tunnel and serve the west of the city. That line was never built. Instead, the REM runs on this corridor, and the number 3 was never reused. The system looks less like other North American metros and much more like a European one. It clearly has Parisian influences, from the naming conventions of the rolling stock and just the general look of the trains, to even the Hector Guimard entrance at one of the stations. And of course, all the announcements are in French. I traveled to Montreal with my brother Berri. We were staying in the Mont Royal neighborhood. I think my favorite part about this area is the fact that right next to the station there's a flower market that is open 24/7. I'm not sure why, but I love it. I googled to see if you're allowed to bring cut flowers from Canada to the US, and interestingly, you are, but it's a huge hassle and they wouldn't survive the journey all too well anyway, so I decided to buy my wife Lindsay some Canadian Kit Kats instead. If you know, you know. We were in the city to attend a concert by a Dutch artist known as Joost Klein. The show was a lot of fun, although even at age 26, I was definitely one of the oldest people in the room. After the performance, we both felt like we should go for at least a few more metro rides to get our money's worth on our day passes we bought. After all, they cost $11.25. Bear wanted to do some sightseeing, I wanted to go to a quieter place so my ears could recover. It became pretty clear where we should go, a place that could meet both our demands, Jean Drapeau Park. And that gives us an opportunity to ride Montreal's shortest metro line, the Yellow Line. So we've come to Berri-UQAM station. It's the busiest station in the system and the second deepest. 3 lines come together here, more than at any other station. The green and orange line platforms are laid over each other in a cross shape, with the orange line on top and the green line below perpendicular to it. It's a layout very similar to Metro Center or L'Enfant Plaza in Washington, D.C., although with different platforms. To get to the Yellow Line, you must take a tunnel to a separate part of the station. The Yellow Line platforms are a block away from the green and orange. After a walk, we've reached the platforms, and our train is already approaching. Up until now, we've mostly been dealing with the newer trains on the system, the MPM 10s, which entered service in 2016. But on the Yellow Line, they exclusively run the MR73 series, dating back to 1976. With 40 years between these two generations, the differences are quite stark between the modern features of the new cars and the vintage design of the old ones. The Yellow Line is just 4 kilometers long or 2.5 miles, with just 3 stations. My favorite fact about this line is that all 3 station names are not the original names. All 3 have been changed since they've been opened. I don't know if it's the only one, but it has to be one of the only transit lines in the world where not a single station still carries its original name. Being so short, when you look at a map, it immediately grabs your attention. Short metro branches exist in several systems around the world. Paris has two, Chicago has one. In fact, it's also their yellow line, and it's also only 3 stations long. I'll give one person permission to make the nickel comment. Just one. I don't know about you, but when I see something like this, I immediately wonder, why does this exist? Which really, if you think about it, is 2 questions in one. Why was it built, and why is it so short? We can answer the first question right now since we've arrived at Jean Drapeau station. Jean Drapeau station serves Jean Drapeau Park, both named after that mayor that we talked about earlier. It is located on the island of St. Helen, and the one next to it, Notre Dame. While St. Helen already existed naturally, it was enlarged, and Notre Dame is fully artificial, having been built using dirt and rock that was dug up from the metro tunnels during construction. See, the 1960s were a big deal for Montreal. In 61, the decision to build the metro was made, and 1 year later, in 62, Moscow dropped their plans to host a World's Fair, and that meant that Montreal got to host it instead. The race was on to get everything ready for Expo 67 in, well, 1967. You're welcome, by the way. So even though there was no metro line planned to serve this island in the original plan, in 1963, they added the yellow line. It opened in April 1967, just a half year after the first part of the metro opened. For the first few weeks, it was only open to the employees of the fair, and then it opened to the public. Interestingly, the Yellow Line wasn't the only railway line to serve the Expo. There was also the Expo Express, North America's first fully automated transit line. It connected different sites across the Expo using train cars that were basically modified Toronto subway cars. After the Expo closed, the Express remained for 6 more years, slowly closing different stations until service ceased altogether in 1973. There were plans to transfer the cars over to the Staten Island Railroad in New York, but that never happened. After several more unsuccessful ideas, they were finally scrapped in 1995. The tracks no longer remain, but much of the rest of the Expo does. The most famous landmark, perhaps, is the Biosphere. During Expo 67, it was the United States exhibit. It then became an arboretum and a bird exhibit, which was possible because it was enclosed. A fire in 1976 burned away the acrylic material that enclosed the building, but it did leave the metal frame, and so it just became an open-air structure. After years of just sitting there, it was turned into a museum, which it still is today.
You can stand underneath it.
It also served as one of the inspirations for Spaceship Earth at Epcot. Other things to see at Jean Drapeau Park include an amusement park known as La Ronde, a Formula One racetrack, the biggest outdoor concert venue in Montreal, a beach, a fort, the rowing venue used in the 1976 Olympics, a sculpture built by Alexander Calder, and great views of the skyline. Let's go back down into the metro. Have you ever wondered about these big, heavy doors? They were actually built to minimize the piston effect caused by the air being pushed through the tunnels by trains. For a station that essentially serves a park, this place has a very large mezzanine. But when you realize that Expo 67 was the busiest World's Fair up until that point, it makes sense.
I will say I was looking for a departure screen. I was like, there are none, and then I found it. That is the weirdest placement for a departure screen I have ever seen.
I mean, you need a good pair of eyes to see that. Also, check out how the station was built to handle huge crowds, and now it kind of feels like a ghost station. It's one of the least used stations on the system, although it still gets 2 million passengers a year. But the thing is, the Yellow Line didn't serve just the Expo. It actually continues one stop beyond Jean Drapeau to Longueuil, a city on the other side of the St. Lawrence River, the 10th busiest station on the entire system. And as such, the Yellow Line is used by a lot of commuters. Now, the last part of our question is, why not extend it further? Well, plans have existed to extend it further into Longueuil, but for a variety of reasons, all of these plans have been cancelled.
Prochaine station, Berri-UQAM. Correspondance avec les lignes orange et vertes.
One of the reasons that I found most interesting is that they say that the rest of the metro system would not be able to handle a yellow line extension farther into Longueuil. The last time an extension was seriously studied was in the 2010s, and then they predicted that the yellow line would see 12% more passengers, and that would be too many new people to add to the transfer station of Berri-UQAM. It would simply crowd the orange and green line platforms there. Which is the first time in my life that I've heard of a metro line not being built because ridership would be too high. It almost kind of feels wrong. I mean, it's essentially an admission that there are a lot of people currently not commuting by train who would. Now, since Berri-UQAM is the choke point for any yellow line expansion, the idea has been floated around to extend the yellow line to McGill station so that transfer to the green line can occur there. But no official plan exists, and for a long time I think the yellow line is going to remain an oddity with 3 stations. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Like I said at the beginning, I think the Montreal Metro deserves to be called iconic, and there's so much more I could talk about. I could talk about more lines, more stations, but it's late. I have to go back to the hotel. There will be another Montreal video in the next few weeks, and in the meantime, there will be content from all over the world. So if you enjoyed this video or you learned something new, please subscribe to Trains Are Awesome. Thank you so much for watching today. We'll see you next time.